Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Mental Corner podcast, the show where I bring on guests from all different backgrounds to talk all the things mental health. I'm your host, Harry Potvin, and today I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Joe Hawley. Joe is a former NFL player turned podcast host and the creator of the Hart Collective, which is a conscious community of seekers, creators, and change makers who are choosing to play a role in the evolution of humanity. Joe is such a blast to have on, and I really want to thank him again for coming on and having this discussion with me. This past weekend, I had the pleasure of going down to Toronto and watching the OUA swimming championships and watching my old team compete for the first time in 2 years. The last OUA championship was the one I was in, which is ridiculous to think about because it feels like I've been retired for so long. And I really wanted to shout out all the swimmers and really all the athletes everywhere in the world who, in the last 2 years just kept pushing, stayed true to the grind, just kept working hard at their craft and came out the other end because, they deserve everything that they're getting. So big shout out to all the athletes who stayed persevering. Now, before we get into the episode today, guys, you know the drill. If you're listening, please like, comment, share, subscribe, give 5 stars if you're on that podcast platform. Share with someone who might want to hear this episode. It's a really great one, and I can't wait for you to listen. I'll talk to y'all very soon. Have a great rest of your day. Peace. We are good to go. Joe, thank you so much for joining me today, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Really looking forward to the conversation.
I am too. So my biggest question for you, and it's the broadest question ever, what got you started on this whole spiritual journey? Like, take me back to the first day that you decided to retire from the NFL and get going with this whole part of your life.
Oh, man. Yeah, there's a lot there, a lot of context. Where did it begin? I mean, yeah, so playing football, obviously, any athlete can relate to no matter how far into your career you make it. Um, there comes a point when you have to let athletics go.
Hmm.
And there's something really unique about football that is really uniquely challenging because you said you're a swimmer, right? So you can go get in the pool and swim and see if you get it. You can probably even do competitions at later time in life. Football, there's really no other opportunities. It's not like I can go play a pickup game of football, at
Right.
least not as competitive as it was. And so for me, I played 16 years of my life, 4 years high school, 4 years college, and then 8 years in the NFL. And to play at that level, I had to be so singularly focused on achieving greatness and playing with the best in the world. One of the things that just reflecting on it, I've done a lot of healing over the last like 4 years, and so I'm able to look at my career with a wider perspective, which I'm really grateful for. But when I was in it, it was like always felt like I had to prove myself to the world, to my coaches, to the front office. I'd lost my starting job 5 different times, and every single time that happened for a wide variety of different reasons. I shifted my internal landscape, and I showed up and I worked my ass off to earn the starting job back. And in that process, it was just really exhausting to have to keep proving myself. And I think anybody in the locker room, I mean, I can relate to football players. I know most football players, there's some deeper underlying reason that they're so successful in sports. And for me, it was, seeking that external validation. It was something I was really good at, and it was something I received love and attention for. And so, but when I was playing, I never felt good enough. Like I never felt like I had arrived. And, in such a hyper competitive environment like the NFL, I was, you're either getting, my coach always used to say this, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. You're never staying the same. And you literally had to always get just the increments better every day, just like those micro percentages. And it took so much energy just to continue to improve, just so I could keep competing with the best in the world. And it got to a point where, I was going into my 8th year, and I had to compete. I was told I had to compete for my starting job once again after starting for the previous 2 years with Tampa Bay. I was told, they brought me back, and I was told, okay, you're going to have to compete with this younger guy for the starting role. And I had been through this before many times throughout my career. And what I quickly realized was it wasn't a competition at all. It was, they wanted me to come in and groom this guy for the future, and they wanted to bring me to kind of as an insurance policy in case he didn't play well or someone got hurt. And so I ended up losing my starting job again. And the start of that season, week one, I ended up on the sideline as an inactive player, in my street clothes. I didn't even dress as a backup because in the NFL, there's only 9 offensive linemen on the team and only 7 of them dress, 2
Mm.
backups, and then 2 guys that are inactive. So I was one of those inactive guys. And for the first time in my career, I felt content. I felt like I was actually happy I wasn't out there competing. And I loved the game of football and I loved competing. I loved game days. I hated everything else that went into like being able to play my best on during the games. But that was the first time in my life I was like, wow, I'm really content with not being out there. So that's when I started realizing maybe I'm done. Maybe this is going to be it. And so I'm really grateful for that experience because I was able to be very present. I decided almost instantly right then because I'd been dancing with it for probably the previous 2 off seasons, like when's my time, and got to a point where just that experience of not having that fire to go compete and earn and like prove myself to the world anymore. I knew it was time for me to let it go, and that was a really hard decision. It wasn't like it was super easy. I mean, there was a part of me that was really, really excited about experiencing the freedom from the game and this, just the way I put it is like, in order to be that good at something, I had to be so singularly focused on it. And a lot of people say like the NFL stands for not for long, right? Like have a
Mm.
backup plan. Not everybody makes it. Like all these stories I heard throughout my entire career. But if I would have had a backup plan or would have been prepared for what was next, then I wouldn't have been able to make it. And so it's this weird dance that you have to be so focused on it that you can't have an out. You can't have another thing to do. You can't have another vocation or career because then you'll take it and you won't be so focused. And it takes that amount of dedication. And so, when I walked away, it was it was really challenging. There's a part of me that was really excited about experiencing what the freedom was like from the game. And then there was a part of me like, okay, who am I without this thing that has defined me for so long? And, it wasn't until after my final game, just a little context, I thought it was really cool. I was on the sidelines for the first 12 games, and then 2 guys got hurt, went on IR. So I ended up playing the last 5 games of my career. And it was really cool because I ended up playing the best 5 games of my career. At least it felt like that. And so it was like the universe was giving me this little opportunity to know that I could still play with the best. And I was choosing to walk away on my own terms. It wasn't because I couldn't compete anymore,
Mm.
which felt really nice. But then a few weeks after my final game, I was sitting there on the couch and the finality of it started hitting me. And yeah, it was really challenging. It felt like a void, literally like a physical void in my heart. And, I ended up the journey I took, and I'm still continuing to go on, over the last 4 years now, has been really trying to discover like who I am on a deeper level. Who am I without this thing that my ego was built on? And, that led me on a profound journey of self-discovery and healing. And I'm still very much on that journey. And yeah, I've learned a lot, and it's a real gift.
Man, that is beautiful. That who am I is the biggest question for every retiree in the world of sports, because you nailed it right in the head where it was you, like my dad would tell me all the time. He's like, this isn't real, this isn't your whole life. Like think of what you're going to do later. But then when I would start to lose focus on the actual sport. So like you said, it's that weird fine line. And I've talked to so many retired athletes who are just retired going, what do I do now? Like maybe I'll join a rec league, or I'll do this, or I'll do that. It's like, no, you got to find a way to put your energy towards something else. But it's so challenging. And it's one of those things that I just wish there was more preparation for people who are in that to
Yeah.
transition more gently.
Yeah. I think it's something you can't really prepare for.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's developing the tools and, the support system. I think you can do that. But I mean, I was one of the guys that out of everybody, probably all my teammates or anybody else in the league, like I was the one that was prepared to handle it the best. And it was still extremely challenging for me. And So to see people that are unprepared, and I gave football everything I had. Like it was my time, and I'm really grateful because a very select few guys walk away on their own terms. Most guys play till the wheels fall off, or they get cut, or maybe they don't get drafted from college, and so they always have this story of what if I would have made it, or I still have a little bit left to give, but I still have it within me. Like I gave football everything I had, and there was nothing left for me to give it, and it was still one of the most challenging experiences of my life. But I'm so grateful for it, because in that death of who I was able to discover who I am on a deeper level. And the question of who am I is not just athletes. I think that's an important question for everyone to reflect on.
Mm.
And I think it's really beautiful as athletes, from my own experience, being able to confront that question, those existential questions at such a young age, and having accomplished so much and made, a lot of money, and living out a childhood dream, and realizing, wow, there's more to life than this. Like I still feel unsatisfied. I still feel unfulfilled, and there's always more money to make. There's always more to accomplish. But like, what's the point of that? And I was able to accomplish that, or get to that point, you know, at 29. Most people work their entire lives until they were confronted with the question. And this whole story of, I'm going to work till retirement so I can start living my life is just it. When you actually reflect on it, it's very sad, and it blows my mind. And especially in the world we live in now, like there's so much opportunity to create abundance and success, and define success in different ways, and finding fulfillment in the present moment and through experiences. And so that's the journey I'm on, is really helping people navigate into those deeper parts of who they are, so that they don't have to wait for some really big transition. They can start asking those questions in real time. And everybody's going to go through big transitions in their life multiple times. And those are usually, in my opinion, the most terrifying, scary experiences, but they're also the most exciting. And they're the things that make me feel most alive. And so it's continuing to get outside my comfort zone so I can continue to learn about who I am and what I'm capable of in all aspects of life.
Mm. Yeah, amazing. Now, what was the first thing you did when you went on this journey? Because I mean, for me and for people who have asked me, like the hardest part for them is like knowing where to start with all of this.
Hmm. Start with all of just
Like figuring out who the hell you are.
yeah, yeah. Man, for me, I would say the most impactful thing, I think, and the most accessible thing for anybody wherever they're at on their journey, is to start reading books.
Mm.
Start expanding your mind and shifting your perspective. That was just such a profound journey for me. I mean, I didn't read books until, little cool story. I played with Tony Gonzalez, who's one of the best tight ends to ever play the game, one of the best receivers to ever play the game. And I was lucky enough to play with him for the last, I think, 3 or 4 years of his career. And he wasn't a big rah speech guy. He just led by example. And he just had this like aura about him. Like, wow, this guy he's played 17 years, first ballot Hall of Famer, just a really special dude. And before his last game on Saturday night, he asked the coach if he could say a few words. And so, in the room, all of my teammates were just like so like attentive, like, wow, the greatest is speaking. Like, let's all just like so focused. And he said, I don't remember a lot of what he said. He's like, there's three things that have led and had a profound impact on my direct impact on my success, not just as an athlete, but as a human. And I forget all of what he said except one thing, and it was he read books.
Mm.
And that just stuck with me. I never had read books, and always had resistance to it. And so I remember texting him later that offseason. I'm like, hey man, I remember you saying like reading books. Like, do you have any books that you recommend? And so he sent me a couple. And the first book I really sat down and read, that was a kind of a spiritual self-development book, was called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. And it's very simple text. I actually just like reread it just recently, because I have on my bookshelf here like hundreds, if not thousands, of books, and I've read a lot of books now. And it's really beautiful, because when you read a book, you can really get into the mind of someone else. Like if you watch a movie or listen to a podcast, like, or consume any other type of content, it's like somebody else's creation of their story. But to read a book, you can actually get into inside someone's thoughts and how they think and how they break down the world and how they get curious about themselves. And so there's just so much you can learn from reading books. And so I think that's the best place to start. Start reading books, find a couple that you like and resonate with. I think a couple other practices are, really journaling and meditating. And something as simple as just really finding stillness and getting curious about who you are. And, you know, when you journal, you can really get to know yourself on a deeper level, what you want to create, who you are. And, talking about, mental health, I think there's something fascinating that happens on the page. I do stream of consciousness journaling, and I've gotten to know myself so good by just like writing out my thoughts and like how they come. And then you just start noticing, like, wait, this is how I talk to myself. This is really fascinating. And then you can start noticing how you talk to yourself, the common themes and narratives, and you can start shifting that story around, because really all we are is an internal dialogue of how we see the world is how the world reflects back to us. And so if you can start shifting that internal narrative and internal dialogue, then you can really start becoming the creator of your experience. And I'm not saying that it's just easy as like flicking your fingers, like it's there's a lot of challenge, and usually getting to know yourself on a deeper level will bring up some challenging emotions and different experiences. But that's, really the journey towards healing and what takes place. And so, yeah, there's just a few tools, and obviously everybody's different, but I think those are three things that can really have a profound impact on anybody and wherever they're at.
Yeah. The first time I ever journaled, I started crying as I wrote it because I was looking at it, I'm like, this is angry. Like it
Mm,
like I didn't I was so I was in such a constant loop of anger and like just hatred for people around me that like as I was writing it, that's when I first realized, because I was so stuck in it, I didn't realize until I looked at it. I was like, that's how I think. Like
mm,
this amount of negativity, it felt like the page was on fire. Like
wow.
the things on that paper. I was like, I don't want to think like that.
Mm. Yeah, and that energy that you're projecting out into the world when you reflect on, oh wow, it's my narrative and my story that's creating this mere reflection of how I see the world, and being able to recognize that. I mean, it's the self-awareness piece. It's taking ownership. It's finally realizing, wow, if I want to change or I want to shift or I want to experience something and be successful, like whatever the story is, like if there's something you desire, you have the ability to create it. But it first starts with owning your own experience and being able to create the story that you want to live.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I look back at who I was before I wrote that, and I'm like, ooh. Like it's do you ever like do reflection on yourself from before and like kind of find it weird? Like do you for me what I mean by that is like for me when I look back at who I was before I went on this whole journey of trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing and like trying to get my mental health straight, I don't recognize who that was before. It's not even like because some people are like, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed by who I was before," or like, "Oh, that's not me. I don't know who that was." But when I look, I'll look at pictures, and I've talked to my friends about this because it really trips me out. But like, I'll look at pictures, I'm like, I don't remember. I'm not looking at myself in that photo. Like, that's not me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question is, was that you, or was that an aspect of you trying to, because for me it's like a process of remembering,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the essence of who we are deep down at some point in our life gets tainted by the world. We have experiences, traumas, stories. It can come from our environment, from our peers, from our parents, most likely, that start to cloud the lens in which we view reality. And in order to receive love, receive validation, to feel worthy or like we belong, we need to start putting masks on of
Mm.
who we think we need to be to fit into a world that is not really safe or seeing us for who we really are. And, as kids, we don't have the tools to really show up. We're just trying to fit in. And we get to a point where we get so lost in all the masks that we're wearing and all of the suffering, we just keep it inside because we're not able to be authentically us. We can't express who we are. We don't know how to. We don't feel safe enough to. And so we put on these masks to receive love, but it's really painful to not be loved or seen for who we actually are. And
Mm.
so when we put on these masks, it's like the mask is the thing that was receiving love, but we know deep down it's not who we are. It's not, we're not the ones. And so for me, the healing journey and the path of like self discovery and self realization is it's really about a letting go of these things that that have kept us safe, that have got us to where we're at. But it's really about, that's the journey of going inward, is okay, who is the deep essence of who I am? Who is the, like, what do I want to experience? What is my soul calling me to do? And that is some deep, profound work that takes a ton of courage. But it's a process of remembering. It's not a process of like changing and becoming something that you think you want to be. It's tapping into what your soul is and knows, and removing the things that you thought you needed to be in order to find success, achievement, fill in the blank in the world.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. Did you find it hard to like quiet your mind at first?
Oh
After yeah.
yeah. Oh man. I was actually just writing about this today because I'm in the process of writing a book, which holy shit, that's a whole nother
Mm,
task. Um, but yeah, when like so I was always told, I grew up in an evangelical Christian household, and I was told that meditation is basically evil. It's Eastern mysticism. It's how Satan finds his way into your thoughts and mind, which is really fascinating to reflect on. But that's the story I had. That's the story I was told. And so I had so much resistance to the idea of meditation, to Eastern philosophy, like whatever it is. And it wasn't until I think halfway through my NFL career, we had these like mindset coaches come in that are coach hired, and they started talking about meditation. And they talked about it from a perspective that I had never heard of before, which was just like really not about spirituality at all or religion. It was like, hey, this is a tool to calm your nervous system, to decrease anxiety and stress, increase focus. This is something like, if you could do all these things, like why would you not do it? I'm
mm,
like, yeah, oh man. In like such a hyper competitive environment like the NFL, I was like, I could use that, because like talk about mental health, emotional health. Like it was so stressful. I'm like, dang, I'm gonna give this a try. And so they had like a little app and different things. And it was like something as simple as like sitting down 5 minutes a day. And that was when I first started meditating. And it was so freaking challenging. Like just 5 minutes felt like an eternity. I couldn't even count my breath to 10. Like I would just get lost in my thoughts constantly. And I still do, but it's like, it's a process of not attaching to the thought, like being able to let them go in real time. Like that's the training. It's not about getting to a place where you don't have any thoughts anymore. It's about not attaching to them. And I just found myself always attaching to my storylines and my thoughts and always getting lost in them. And yeah, it was a process that's still continuing to unfold. I've obviously gotten a lot more, you know, I got better at it, and I'm able to embody a more felt sense of presence. But yeah, when I first started, because I think a lot of people when they first start meditating, they're like, I'm not good at it, or I can't do it. Like I can't even count, And so like I went through that too. And that is the gift. That is the exercise. And I think one of the best analogies I can make that I heard when I was first started meditating, it's like, especially as an athlete, like when you go into the gym, you go do some curls, let's say, and every time you do a rep, it rips the muscle up, and then it heals. And so it's the resistance of the rep that rips the muscle, which provides it to grow back even stronger. And so I was told that meditation is, it's like working out the mind and the awareness. And so every time my mind would get lost in a string of thoughts, instead of judging myself, no matter, like say I'm lost in thoughts for like minutes, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I don't even remember what number I was on. Like I don't even remember, I wasn't aware of my breath. And it's like in that moment, like the catching of the awareness lost in the thoughts, like that's the rep. And then
mm,
being able to come back and start counting. And so the more you can do that, you don't judge yourself for getting lost in the thoughts, but as soon as you catch yourself, you come back. And then every time you come back, it's like a rep. And the more you can do that, the stronger your awareness gets and the quicker you can let go of those thoughts, and you can actually improve and increase your mental capacity of and strengthening your awareness to not attach to those thoughts. And so it is very important. Like, meditation is different for everybody and everybody has different minds and thoughts, but to get to know yourself and how crazy your mind is the gift of meditation.
Mm. Yeah, meditation is tough, man. I started really getting into it maybe what year is it? 2022. Maybe like a year and a half ago, like when the whole pandemic thing really hit, I started to try to tap in, and it felt like that monkey with the symbols just
Mm,
constantly. I was like, I'm not even listening. There was one time where I fell asleep because I
yeah.
just like it was so hard to focus. And it's like you said, it still is. There's waves where I'll try to sit down and meditate, and 5 minutes in, I'm like looking at the clock.
Yep. Yeah. It's powerful. It just keeps showing up. I think, there's a bunch of different ways to meditate. I think one thing that helped me is guided meditations.
Hmm.
Here, like listening to someone's voice, following it, and allowing it to guide me, and not putting a tremendous amount of pressure or judgment. I think consistency is key. So even if it's something as simple as one conscious breath, I mean, that's meditation. And it's fascinating how many people go through their entire lives without actually taking a conscious breath in a day. So if you can just, as soon as you get up, set your alarm, set a reminder, and just like that's the starting point, and then go on with your day. And then maybe the next day it's a couple breaths. And then you start being like, wow, I really enjoy taking breaths. Oh man, let me take 10 breaths. It's like, oh man. And then it's like you continue to find that stillness and you start bringing that stillness and that meditation throughout your day. Like after this podcast, you might be, okay, I need to go edit. I need to go just let me take a deep breath. And so you can just take deep breaths throughout the day consistently. Because even you can get lost in meditation being like a discipline and you start judging yourself like, oh, I didn't have time to meditate today. It's like, is that the goal of meditation, to have 10 minutes a day where you meditate? Or is the goal of meditation to bring that into your everyday life so your life starts to become a meditation? So you can recognize when you're lost in thoughts, when you're lost in emotion, when you're feeling stressed, you can catch yourself and be like, whoa, why am I stressed? Let me take a few breaths. Let me go on a walk. Let me slow down. Let me go get my feet in the ground so I can get grounded. And so you just start recognizing when you're lost in the busyness of life, and you can find those tools to slow down and be more present throughout your day. I think that's the goal.
Mm. Yeah, wow, you just changed my mind on the whole idea of meditation, man. It's true, yeah, because I've done that where I'm like, I need 10 minutes here, I need 10 minutes there, and then when I don't have the time, I'm like, I'm an idiot.
Yeah. Even like yoga, like I really love doing yoga because for me, I mean, I'm really busy too. I'm just as busy as everyone else. Like I get it. It's hard to find time in the day.
Mm,
And for me, yoga has been a really powerful practice because yoga is just a meditation, but it's like a moving meditation. And so I'm actually knocking out a few birds with one stone, so to speak. Like I'm getting my movement in, I can get outside, I can get some sunlight, I can bring awareness into my body and my breath and move my body and move energy around. And so if I have a 20-minute yoga flow, I'm doing meditation, I'm getting outside, I'm getting in the ground, and I move my body, all that in 20 minutes, and I'm feeling great. It's like,
mm,
oh, there we go. It's not about like, I need to find an hour for meditation, an hour for yoga, go to the gym for an hour. It's like, oh man, my day's gone. Like, I don't have any time to do anything, any work or any fun or any play. And so it's about incorporating and being more fluid with our day and not so rigid in our schedules.
right. Yeah, definitely. When did you realize that all this stuff was starting to work on your own consciousness?
Mm. I mean, I think the meditation was a big like awakening to my thoughts and like the monkey mind. Um, I read this book called The Power of Habit, and it's a little bit kind of heady. It's a little bit kind of intellectual, dense kind of research type book, but there was a lot of I don't know, I don't want to call them studies, but there's just a lot of like thought exercises and different like data that they pull from people and different studies. And I remember something that stuck out in that book. It was about brushing my teeth, and it was just basically saying, when we, like, let's say when we drive our car, how often have you been driving and then all of a sudden you get to where you're going and you don't even remember how you got there because you're just so lost in your thoughts, and you're an automatic pilot, right? Like, you
Mm.
say you go to school or go to work and you know the same route and you go there and you just lost, like, wow, I don't even remember like making the last three turns. I just was so like in the flow. And that's the thing in this book. It talks about the brain wants to create automatic habits so that it can free up energy to think. And that's the gift of the mind. But a lot of times, if we don't ever question or be present with our habits, they become so automatic, and then we get lost in the mind. And so the gift of being human is the ability to think, but
Hmm.
we have to be able to train it and not get lost in it. And so doing it with way more intention. And so it talked about the simple exercise of, when you brush your teeth, do you actually brush your teeth, or are you thinking about the day ahead or the day that you just had? And I remember reading it, and then like a couple of days later, I was just brushing my teeth, and then just that statement hit me while I was brushing my teeth, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I was lost in my thoughts there.
Mm.
And then I started recognizing and like feeling the bristles on my teeth, and like the salivation and the taste of the toothpaste. I'm like, wow, like I'm present. And I started using brushing my teeth as a meditation too, of like, what does it feel like to, and so you realize that everything can be a meditation. Like when you're driving your car, like, how do I be present with the steering wheel? How do I, be present with my surroundings? And it's really about not getting lost in your thoughts and coming back into the present moment. And that's been a continuous unfolding. And I think that's the beautiful thing about this journey, is it really is infinite, and that can be overwhelming when you first realize the enormity of that statement as well. But there's like infinite layers of awareness and going deeper. And I think it's about, that's why for me it always comes back to being present, and being present with the experience, not wanting to get somewhere so quickly, wanting to create and think about something in the future, that my life would be better if or when I achieve this thing or have this thing, like fill in the blank. But how do I enjoy the process as it unfolds? Like fall in love with the journey of becoming, because I don't believe there is any destination. There is no like, all of a sudden I'm going to be, enlightened and not have a care in the world. It's like that. Yeah, maybe you can get there. Maybe you can go live in the Himalayan mountains and meditate for 8 hours a day, but that's not a life I want to live. I think this experience we've created is really beautiful. There's a reason we're here. It's fun. It's a game. It's challenging. It's hard, but it gives us an opportunity to embody courage, to grow, to learn about who we are, and to not get lost in the game as if and attached to it as if it gives us value, but to find that value and that worthiness from within, so that you can play the game free of attachment. And it just makes it a lot more enjoyable.
Mm. Yeah, I've caught myself many times where um, I view where I am right now as like, how do I explain this? Like when you're in a video game, when you're playing like Mario and you get to the flag, and it's like it's a checkpoint. So if you die further, you can just stay here. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of viewed my state as sometimes, where it's like this isn't this is just one step towards the end goal. But then you think, like you said, like what even is that? Like what
Yeah,
what
I
is
mean,
this
and you
end
really,
thing?
there is no end. And I've done some different plant medicine and psychedelic journeys as well, and I've really gone deep into the study of my own consciousness. And I've read a lot of books on studying the psyche and psychology. I just have like a wide range of experience with a lot of things, and what I've come to is, even the idea of death and this idea of linear time, that there is some endpoint. I mean, that's only an illusion as well. Death is just a transition. And for anybody that's experienced a huge transition in their life, they've experienced some form of egoic death. We talk about leaving athletics. Like, what a gift that is to have experienced such a profound ego death while I'm still living, which has given me the freedom to explore of, whoa, if that who I was before died and I'm still alive, then that was a transition into something new. that's what we're constantly doing. We're constantly dying of the old way of who we are, the old way of being, so that we can allow for the new. And that process of unfolding and evolution is infinite. There is no end to it. And to really comprehend that can be overwhelming. I've been in an experience in a psychedelic journey where I felt that, like, wow. And you talked about earlier before the podcast started about a little bit about your journey and some of your suicidal thoughts of like knowing, oh man, like I'm okay, and I'm okay with maybe ending it here. And the really profound and overwhelming truth to that is even that will not end it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is that escape of like the desire for it to be over is not a possibility. Like consciousness continues on, and your current situation or story that you are unsatisfied with or is leading you to feel the desire to maybe end it is a real gift, because you have the ability to change and to shift. And I'm not saying that's an easy journey. It takes a deep grieving process and reflection on who you are and where you're at, and maybe it's changing your environment, like maybe giving everything up and going and just traveling the world, or going to a different city where you don't know anybody. But to let go of those attachments of who you think you need to be is a form of dying, and it's a more beautiful form of dying, so that you can actually realize that you are the creator of your experience, and you can go into a new experience. And I think that's just constantly unfolding for all of us always.
Yeah,
I know that was a
absolutely.
little esoteric there and a
No,
little
that
bit
was great. Yeah,
heavy.
you're great. Did you ever? Because for me, I mean, don't listen to this, mom. But I did have. I also had a
Hey mom,
psychedelic.
hey mom, I love you.
Yeah, I love you, mom. I also had this personal psychedelic experience, but the biggest thing that I took away from it was, um, no one really cares. And if I was in a bad headspace, that would have really messed me up. But when I was in this headspace, it was more to say to tell me like I was so afraid of judgment from everyone else that it influenced how I went about life and how I made decisions and how I looked
Mm.
at how I talked to people, how I would treat people. But in the end of the day, like you got to do it for you because everyone's worried about everyone else, but really kind of focused on how they're perceived by the world. So did you ever have that worry that like when you made this big transition from the NFL to what you're doing now that there was going to be judgment?
Yeah. Ooh, judgment is a big one. And what I've found, in kind of my spiritual journey and realization, and reading a bunch of books about a lot of mystical teachers that are a lot more enlightened than me. um Judgment, and it's really cool to actually go on a journey of starting to understand this. Like you said, like I was so scared of others judging me, but what that really means is you are judging yourself, because nobody else is actually judging you. And if someone else is judging you, it's only because they're judging that within themselves. And so when you start realizing that you are your own judge, and I've done a lot of reflection on this, and to get a little bit, esoteric again with judgment, I truly believe that judgment is, this idea of evil or Satan or darkness. Judgment is the thing that lives within inside all of us that decides what's good and what's bad, what's
Mm,
right and what's wrong. And to be in a state of judging, then you are, in a sense, playing God. You are deciding who is worthy and who is not. And we all have our own inner judge, our own inner critic. And that voice that lives within all of us is shaped mostly by, our parents, our upbringing, the experiences that we had in life. And that's not necessarily the fault of anybody. You might have had a really good childhood with really amazing parents, but it's just certain experiences that society tells us and programs us into what is right and what is wrong. And when you start having those experiences, you start judging yourself for what is right and what is wrong.
Mm.
And when you start doing this healing work, the deeper you get into it, a lot of people talk about like shadow work or bringing the shadow into the light. And there's a lot of truth to that, because the shadow part of who we are in the unconscious is the part that we judge and we think is unworthy, and we don't want other people to see it within us. And so we put these aspects of ourselves into the shadow realm of our psyche, because that I don't want anybody to see that part of me. And that can really lead to suffering and pain, and a divided psyche and consciousness. It's every time you put a mask on, like we talked about earlier, every time you put a mask on, you're putting out actually your authentic self into the shadow. And the shadow can be the good parts of who you are. For me, it was really, I have so much to give the world. I have so much love. I'm such a good human. And I started judging myself for that. And I was like, man, like the world, like girls like the bad boy, so I need to be the bad, and so I put that good aspects and good qualities of myself in the shadow too, and put
Mm.
these masks on of what I thought I needed to be. And so it's a very complex, nuanced thing. But judgment is the thing where the work lies, and to really reflect on where, even if you're judging others, like you can start there, like what do I judge in others, and realize that's probably something I'm judging within myself. And when you start recognizing that, like you said, nobody really cares about anybody else but themselves. Like if you really reflect, do I really care about anybody else but myself? And if I'm really reflecting and projecting my judgments onto others, I mean, that's really just something I'm judging within myself. And it really creates a deep level of freedom to realize, like, wow, everybody's walking around really just they're probably in their own shit. They're judging themselves. They're going through their own process. They're in their own experience of life, and they're doing their own work. And if I can just come back into myself and work on releasing the judgments I have on who I think I need to be, who I've told I need to be, that is what unlocks the deeper levels of inner freedom. I think judgment is a profound journey to begin releasing that. And I think that's what we're all on. And it's hard, it's challenging, because the world tells us who we need to be in life, and that's not allowing us to show up in who we are and to express our most authentic, genuine self. And so to release that judgment is the work, and it's not easy, but it is very rewarding when you can look at it and continue to release it.
Mm. Do you think we'll ever get to a point where there's no judgment?
Yeah. Just to like widen the lens out, I believe that we're going through a collective shift in consciousness. I can just feel it intuitively, and then I just look out in the world, and I could just, like, a lot of my friends, a lot of people I know, like even over the last couple of years, there's just this profound evolution of consciousness where everybody's really going inward, and those who aren't are really struggling and suffering. And we're being called to make a choice to really, show up and do the inner work and embody the courage to grieve and let go of the things that no longer serve us, or really attach to this idea of the way the world is, which is really where I think the anchor, the seed of suffering lives. And so I believe we're on this path. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what the world looks like if all of a sudden, everybody's just starts releasing judgment of themselves. And I'd like to think my optimist self likes to think like, yeah, we're going to get to a point where we're able to really come together and understand these spiritual truths, that we are all a lot more similar than we are, not alike. And we're connected to nature in ways that we can't even comprehend, and we're not as separate as we think. And this, I've done a lot of reflection on growing up in a Christian household, with the story of Adam and Eve. And the story if you're not familiar with it, like the fall of man from the Garden of Eden, when Adam decided to eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And what I truly believe that that story, that motif, that metaphor really stands for is that knowledge, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, is to have the ability to judge, like what is good and what is evil. And so the fall of man, the separation from the Garden of Eden, from divinity, was when we decided that we wanted to play God. We wanted to decide what was right and what was wrong. And that is what created its judgment, really. And so when we decided we wanted to judge, and where that originated and where that came from, this is obviously just a story. And I truly believe that we're getting to a point now where we're able to release that judgment and come back into oneness. And when you start going on this path and you can be more present and look out into the world, we live in the Garden of Eden, but we're separate from it. And so to come back into the knowing that being here now is the gift, to connect with nature, to connect with love, compassion, each other. Like, we have the ability to create heaven on earth now because it already is. It's just a level of consciousness. So I like to believe, and I truly intuitively feel that there's something really magical happening. And I always say, what a time to be alive that we get to experience it. And it's, really not about how we can show up and heal the world or do the work for others who maybe we see that are in a state of judgment or suffering or pain, but how can we love them through that and embody who we are without judgment? And once we can do that, that's what inspires others to release their judgment. Because if you're met, like if someone comes into my life and is judging me, and I can feel it energetically, like I don't judge myself, so I'm not actually like receiving that judgment. I can see through it and be like loving and compassionate, like, hey, like it's okay, like I see you. And in that moment dissolve their own judgment because I'm not able to receive it because I don't judge myself in that way. And I can see them and love them for who they are. And the more people that can do that, embody that, I think that will send ripples out that can and has the potential to change the world.
Man, that's beautiful. Yeah. What a tricky situation, but beautiful as well. I agree. A lot of my friends are a lot more in tune with who they are now, as opposed to when we were all growing up and trying to be a bunch of jackasses and stuff. Um,
And that's
I
a part of the journey too. I
That's
miss
true.
being a jackass.
Yeah, yeah. Can we go back to that, please?
Yeah.
Uh, what inspired the Heart Collective?
Mm, yeah. So, when I first walked away from the game, just a little backstory. I left. I ended up, like we talked about, pondering the question, "Who am I?" And I went on this journey of healing and self discovery, and what that looked like was I bought a van. I gave away all my possessions to charity, and I traveled the country on a road trip for the better part of 2 years. On that journey, I did a lot of healing, like yoga, listened to a lot of audiobooks, went on a bunch of different retreats and joined some communities, and realized that once about probably a year and a half into that trip, I was like, okay, I don't want to do this forever. I want to have an impact. I want to inspire others. Like, what's my purpose? Like, what am I here to do? And I got this download or this insight to support other athletes in the journey that I had just gone through. Because if there was a community for me to plug into when I was first done playing, it would have had a profound impact on my life. And I did some research, and there was nothing really like that out there. And so that's when the Heart Collective, wasn't called the Heart Collective then, but that was the original idea. Like, how can I build community for former elite level athletes to support them in that transition process? I did that for about a year and a half and got, a few guys to join, did a couple retreats, learned a lot, and just realized that, after talking to hundreds of former athletes, it was challenging to get guys to buy into that.
Hmm.
I think, just talking about, there's just a lot of unique challenges with it. And so, what I realized about 6 months ago is, I was meant for something more and a bigger impact. Like helping former athletes in transition is a niche community, an even smaller niche of guys that are desiring to go on this path. And so it just wasn't a sustainable business. And so started reflecting on, okay, what am I here to do? How can I evolve this? And so we ended up pivoting about 6 months ago, and opening up the Heart Collective, and really focused on providing community for anybody that is on this path of self-discovery, of healing, of connection, of growth. And as I know, when you start waking up to these deeper truths and questioning the story of who you are, it can be really challenging, especially at first. You start meditating, you're like, whoa, I'm fucking crazy. Like, what's going on? And it's really hard when you start waking up and you're in an old environment where maybe other people don't see you that way, or they haven't started questioning their own reality. And so they start looking at you like, whoa, you're changing, you're different. Like, and then it's starting to confront them with their own stuff. And so the people that just first start waking up, all the way to the people that are really like on the path and looking for deeper community and connection and want to be inspired by others who are showing up and doing good work in the world, wherever you're at on that spiritual awakening path, community is the most important aspect of the healing journey, is what I found. And I've been a part of a couple really incredible communities that have had a profound impact on my life. And so my desire is to create community for anybody that wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And so this community is just a really accessible price point. It's only $29 a month, and you get access. We have an app where we have a bunch of different discussion forums. We have a bunch of different topics. We do weekly calls, where we get real. We talk about, like we have a heart-to-heart call. We have, a heart social hour. We have a collective breath where we do meditations together. And then we do workshops on a wide variety of different topics. So you get to connect with other people on the path. And there's a bunch of other resources on our website, like meditations, there's yoga flows, master classes. So just a ton of value. Anybody at $29 a month can really join. We have a free resource as well. So, if money is a thing, then you can join for free. But you won't have access to like the full breadth of all the experiences that we have to offer. And then, we're hosting retreats as well. And then we have a new program that we're launching in April called Fear Alchemy. Mm-hmm. And it's a course that really helps you navigate your deeper fears and the root of them, and being able to alchemize them into understanding, into truth, into wisdom, into love, so you can show up and really discover that deeper heart's calling and your deeper purpose. And so, yeah, I'm really, really excited about the direction that the Heart Collective is going. I can feel how big it is and how impactful it's going to be in the world. And for me, it's really just anybody who feels called and knows that it's time to build a more beautiful world. Our hearts know it's possible. It's time that we come together, rally the troops, and start putting our energy into something special. And that's really where we're at, and excited to bring it to the world. Excuse me.
I love it, man. Now, where can my listeners, if they want to help grow this thing or learn more about you or do anything like that, where can they find all of you and your stuff?
Yeah, we just launched a new website. It's heartcollective.org, HART collective.org. And there'll be all of the information on there. If you go to the membership page, there's the free membership and then the Inner Circle membership, which is $29 a month. And you get access to the app, which is downloadable on your phone, which is really cool. And then, yeah, if you want to just kind of dive into and hear more conversations around the stuff that I like talking about, obviously you got a pretty good taste of it here. I have a podcast that's called Quantum Coffee as well, and a lot of really amazing conversations with some really incredible people. And I also do some solo casts on some deeper, more esoteric topics as well. So go check that out if you're interested.
I love it, man. I'll put those links down below. Joe, thank you so much for joining me today, man. It's been a blast.
Yeah, thanks, brother. I really appreciate it. Keep up the good work, man. Really proud of you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And to all my listeners, I will see you guys next time.